Tom Clark laid under the stone, destined forever to be walked on. Railroad bill, a ghost on the tracks, a man and a myth with the wind at his back. Alabama scoundrels, wild and free, outlaws roaming from the hills to the sea. Pirates, bandits, and bushwhackers too. History's shadows come into view. Bloody Bob Sims with his prophets war, preaching fire through the devil's door. And Steve Renfro with the sheriff's star. Outlaw justice never strayed far. Country diggers, welcome to the Speakeasy. Last video we talked about James Copeland and the infamous Harvey battle. He was from the James Copeland gang, and Gale Wages and the Legend of the Buried Gold was the other one we talked about. Well, I thought I would go into the treasure part now. As of 2024, from what I can tell, nobody has found the gold yet. So I'm going to read a little bit about it. And the article is going to be from 2020, I think. Yeah, 2020. And it's going to be countryroadsmagazine.com, Hunting James Copeland's Lost Treasure. So stay tuned. All right, this is from countryroadsmagazine.com, Hunting James Copeland's Lost Treasure. Legend has it there's pirate gold in Catahoula Creek by William Browning. The legend of James Copeland, along with his treasure, is largely drawn from the somewhat questionable account of Sheriff J.R.S. Pitts, who arrested the pirate, they're land pirates, not sea pirates, land pirates, before his hanging in 1857. Okay? Catahoula Creek is a thin and meandering waterway that stretches 25 or so miles through South Mississippi before joining the Jordan River near the Gulf Coast. This is Hancock County, just east of St. Tammany Parish, across the state line. The creek moves through the rural area where forests grow so thick that the world can appear darker than it is, and the air down near where the water runs can feel slow, damp, and cool, like something ancient is at hand. More than 150 years, people have been trekking up and down the Catahoula looking for a cache of gold that a 19th century land pirate claimed to have buried somewhere nearby. According to Robert G. Sheriff's 1999 book, Louisiana's Lost Mississippi's Game, History of Hancock County, Mississippi, from the Stone Age to the Space Age. Most of them bring shovels. Okay. There are many holes along Catahoula Creek, so people have been looking for it, where people have dug for this gold. When I went to the creek earlier this year with my kayak, I wasn't necessarily looking for gold as much as adventure. And perhaps some of the remnants of what Sheriff describes, if not freshly dug holes, then old indentions along the bank, evidence of the lore of the buried treasure story can hold. Of course, if I happened to stumble onto the gold, that would have been even better. I was not holding my breath for the treasure itself. After all, the pirate who said it was out there wasn't exactly the most dependable fellow. He made the claim while awaiting execution for murder. Why should we believe him? It's also possible that he never made the claim at all. The man who said the pirate made the claim had a financial stake in circulating the rumor. He had a book to sell. Also, it was only after the pirate was dead and buried that the book was published. But then maybe, just maybe, now a full circle, the knowledge of his pending death had this pirate wanting to unburden himself. And the man he told simply shared the truth with the world. Somewhere in the ground along Catahoula Creek, there was gold waiting to be found. All of this to say the story of this buried treasure is a riddle, one that allegedly originated from the mouth of a thief and convicted murderer, which then made its way into the world via a book its author was peddling. In other words, as buried treasure stories go, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better one. The name James Copeland is mostly forgotten today. There was a time, though, as the historian John D.W. Geese said, that it was a household word from Mobile Bay to Lake Pontchartrain. Upon its utterance, Gulf Coast residents would check for shadows over their shoulders and watch carefully what they said. For roughly 3 decades, in the middle of the 19th century, Copeland and a small band of criminals moved through the wilderness between Texas and Alabama, looting, robbing, and exacting revenge upon anyone who crossed them. Mostly they stole livestock and kidnapped slaves. They murdered too, and eventually the law caught up with Copeland. In the fall of 1857, at the age of 34, he was hanged near Old Augusta, a now vanished town in South Mississippi. Word has spread far and wide of his mysterious ways, and a crowd came to watch. The following year, the book about Copeland's life appeared on the shelf, shrouded in its own mystery. Life and Confession of the Noted Outlaw James Copeland was written by Sheriff J.R.S. Pitts, the man who ultimately arrested the pirate. In the book, the sheriff claims he received Copeland's life story during his final days behind bars while he waited his execution. Pitts wrote it all down and in 1858 sent it into the world. Written in the first person, as if Copeland was speaking, the book was a sensation. Then suddenly it vanished. No copy is known to exist today. As the story goes, members of Copeland's gang, men still living at the time of the book's publication, were outed in its pages, and they organized an effort to destroy every copy. And some of them also sued Pitts. He was convicted of libel and spent a short time in an Alabama jail. Well, I didn't know that. The last video didn't go into all that. They just said he was sued for libel. But then he won, and they put the book back out. So what happened? I don't know. Let's see. He always claimed that the trial was a sham. In 1874, Pitts, by then a respected county doctor, published a second expanded edition. Okay, that one. One that he altered in order to avoid lawsuits. This book, though, became difficult to find, too. In 1909, Pitts' son bought out a third edition, expanding it even more. Only a few copies of it are known to exist. From one of them, though, the University Press of Mississippi in 1980 published an edition of Life and Confession of the noted outlaw James Copeland, which can be found in libraries across the Gulf Coast today. In an introduction to this newest edition, the historian John Giese, I think, Guice, takes on a matter of whether everything Pitts attributed to Copeland should be taken as fact. He concludes that each reader has to make his or her own decisions, but points out that items in the book that can be fact-checked against other historical documents. Descriptions of far-flung cities, the everyday lives of Southerners in 1840s, some of Copeland's alleged crimes, etc., all pass the test of truthfulness. Regardless, the fact remains that just about everything we know about Copeland comes from the pages of Pitt's book, including the tale about the gold buried along Catahoula Creek. As the story goes, Copeland buried the gold with the help of his cohort, Gale H. Wages, who built a house near Catahoula Creek. Together, they buried 3 wooden barrels, each one containing $10,000 worth of gold, near the house for safekeeping. In the pages of Life and Confession of the noted outlaw James Copeland, the place where they put them is described as being 1.5 miles or 2 miles from Wage's house. Copeland kept a map to the spot, which Pitts describes in the book like this: designated by a large pine tree that grew at the margin of the swamp. To the northeast, and about 35 yards from where the kegs were deposited, and a magnolia tree that grew about 10 yards to the southeast. Sometime after burying the barrels, Wages was killed by a man named James Harvey over an unrelated matter. Copeland later shot Harvey for revenge. That murder is what ultimately led to his execution. But during the gunfight, he lost his map to the Catahoula loot and could never again locate it. That gunfight was in 1848. The first edition of Life and Confession of the noted outlaw James Copeland appeared 10 years later, and that presumably is when people began searching for the gold. In the subsequent editions of the book, Pitts wrote that the map Copeland lost had made its way to a man in Mobile named George Cleveland. From that time to the day of his death, Pitts wrote, Cleveland remained independent, all the while increasing rapidly in wealth and external prosperity. He might have got it. A not-so-subtle suggestion that Cleveland had, in fact, retrieved the gold. This, however, has not deterred the treasure hunters. As historian James Picknick wrote in the Gulf Coast Historical Review in 1987, they are optimistic souls who continue to hope that Pitts was mistaken in his claim that Cleveland dug up the fabled whiskey barrels long ago. I tell you, it's not, for me, it's not so much, when I find something, I'm so excited, you know. I'm so excited to find something good, you know. When I do find something good, I don't usually find anything good. But when I do, it's amazing. And for me, it's like you never know what you're going to dig up. So when that detector beeps, you think, after you've been detecting a while and you're kind of tired and you don't really want to dig it because it's a good signal, but you don't really want to dig it because you're so tired. But you think, okay, I'm going to dig this and it'll probably be a can. and you dig it, and it's something like like what I found about the Australian shilling, 1945 Australian shilling, or 44, with the ram's head on it. Oh, I was so tired that day. And all of a sudden, I told myself it's going to be the last dig. And I hit that, and wow. And it just, the thrill of the hunt, too. The thrill of the hunt. And it made me keep going about an hour after I dug it. So, you know, it's the thrill of the hunt. Never know what you're going to find. All right. Tales of these searches are scattered across 20th century newspapers. In 1921, a story in the Times-Democrat, a New Orleans paper, claimed that a chest containing several $1,000s had been found in the swamp of Catahoula Creek. In 1952, a historian writing in the I can't remember that. I know that word. Picaune. I know that word. I just can't think of it right now. Item newspaper suggested that the gold was still there. In 1957, though, a 73-year-old woman named Eliza Pearson Durham, who grew up near Catahoula Creek, told a reporter from the that's a word again that I can't think of, item, that when she was a child, her father showed her the spot not far from their family farm, where the barrels had been dug up and hauled away. She recalled seeing a rusted iron band in the ground, a detail which piqued my interest because it matched something Pitts claimed Copeland said, that the barrels were well ironed hooped. I checked the veracity of Durham's account a little more. According to the Penicky item, I know that word, I just can't say it right now. I can't think of it. Article, her father's name was R.R. Pearson. At a Hancock County public library near Catahoula Creek, I found an 1880 census record from the county that listed a 21-year-old named R. Pearson living and working on a farm, family farm. I also found in a history of local families that a man named Reuben R. Pearson married a woman named Alverta Burge on December 15, 1880. Durham was born 4 years later. This had to be her father. So in February, when I took my kayak to Catahoula Creek, I put in close to Old Bowie Road, not far from the old Pearson family farm. It was a promising spot. I figured to begin looking for man-made holes, rusted pieces of iron, and a pirate's lost gold. The creek, judging by the dark stillness of its surface, was made 10 feet deep in some places, and in others the water barely reached my shins. This made for rough going. Complicating matters was the fact that every 30 or so yards I encountered a beaver dam or fallen tree. I spent almost as much of my time walking through the water, dragging my kayak behind me, as I did paddling down the creek. For almost 3 hours I plodded along, getting caked in mud and soaked in cool, dry creek water. I never did spot any gold, rusted iron, or even a magnolia tree, which I was looking for. About 2 miles or so downstream, from where I put in, though, I came across a hole, about 4 feet wide and 4 feet deep, that looked man-made. I cannot say with certainty it was a treasure hunter's work, but since it seemed like an odd spot for a random indention, I took a picture, then quickly moved on. By then, I had other more immediate concerns. I was coming up on being an hour late for a checkpoint where my wife was to pick me up. Because I could not reach her on my cell phone, there was no service. I needed to hurry up. As I quickened my pace and my breathing grew heavy, I noticed how quiet the area was. Other than a single huge white bird, whose flapping wings I only glimpsed up through the tree branches, I saw no animals. Where life was concerned, the area seemed vacant to a point of being abandoned. If Copeland indeed chose to bury his loot there, I thought to myself that he made a fine decision. Eventually, due to so many fallen trees, I could not paddle my kayak to the creek. The density of the foliage made it almost impossible to drag it behind me. So I ditched it. I pulled it up on the bank, laid it between two trees, and began walking. A little more than 30 minutes later, I reached the pickup point. "You smell like a swamp," my relieved wife said, and we went for burgers. What did my search yield? Nothing really. I only exhausted myself in the good way and lost a kayak. There was something fulfilling about the experience, though. After all, as James Dobson, an Oklahoma treasure hunter, once told me, it's not the idea of finding buried treasure that is so appealing, but rather the search for it. And that's true. That is so true. Maybe one day I will go back and retrieve my kayak from those woods. If I do, I plan on taking a shovel too. Until then, anyone who ventures into the swamp along Catahoula Creek might see it. Proof of someone else drawn into the area by the legend of Copeland'S gold. All right, so there you go. Some information on it, and so far that was written in 2020, and so far in 2024, since 2024 that I read, nobody has found it yet. Now, whether they found it a long time ago, I don't know. But that's the thrill of the hunt right there. All right, see you back soon. Hope you enjoyed.